Yep.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right, gotcha.
Well, can't turn my camera on for some reason. Here.
There you go. You're on now.
Commissioner Brady, we're now live.
Okay. Welcome to the January 25th, 2021 City Commission meeting. Prior to tonight's meeting, we will have an invocation offered by Commissioner Waddick, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
God our Father, as we gather for this meeting tonight, give us the guidance and wisdom to make the proper decisions. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, Wes is here.
Ms. Briggs, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Waddington,
Present.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Murray,
Here.
Mr. Brady,
Here.
Ms. Twine,
Here.
Mr. Meinzer,
Here.
Mr. Poole.
Yep, I'm here.
Commissioners, you have before you the minutes of our meeting of January the 11th, 2021. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddick.
I move that we accept the minutes of the January 11th meeting and dispense with the formal reading.
Second.
Got a
Mr.
motion and a second discussion.
Mr.
Without
Chair-
objection, the motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved.
Okay.
Once again, we're holding this meeting, this Sandusky City Commission meeting electronically. Commissioners and staff are in attendance through internet hookup in a variety of safe locations. We've asked our audience to either submit their questions or their comments in writing to the commission clerk. We will answer those that pertain to legislation as that legislation comes before us, as well as provide a response to any other audience questions from the appropriate staff. I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that those participating in this meeting are doing so with appropriate distancing and face masks where appropriate. Ms. Briggs, are there any questions from the public that pertain to tonight's agenda?
President Brady, we did not receive any communications for tonight's agenda.
Excellent. Commissioners, you have before you several communications from staff recommending various legislation. Can I have a motion to accept these communications?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Commissioners, we have 6 consent items to consider this evening. There are 5 ordinances and 1 resolution to consider. Do any of you wish to move any of the items on the consent agenda to the regular agenda? Ms. Briggs, will you present the consent agenda, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Coming up on your screen should be tonight's consent agenda. Item A is a change order, first and final, for the digester cleanout project, and it is a deduction. Item B is a contract with Browning Ferris Industries doing business as Republic Services for the 2021 yard waste collection. Item C is an expenditure with Core and Main LP for parts for water service infrastructure. Item D is an expenditure with Insight Public Sector for Ohio Office 365 government renewal. Item E is an agreement with Dynegy Energy Services LLC for electricity aggregation program. And F is a grant application to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for fiscal year 2020, the Assistance to Firefighters Grant.
Commissioners, having heard these ordinances and resolutions, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Murray.
I move to accept the consent agenda and declare that all of the ordinances or resolutions drafted and presented to us under the consent agenda shall take effect in accordance with the section reflected in the ordinances or resolutions, whether that is section 13 or 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Briggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Waddington,
Yes.
Mr. Poole,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mr. Brady,
Yes.
Ms. Twine,
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer.
Yes.
And now on the ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Those ordinances and resolutions are passed. We'll now turn to our regular agenda. Ms. Briggs, will you present item number 1 for us, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Item number 1 is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Republic Services of Sandusky, Ohio for refuse and recycling collection on city property for the period of March 1st, 2021 through February 28th, 2022, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Twine.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under the suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Klein, I know this is a slight increase from what we paid a year ago. I wonder if you can explain that increase away.
Yes, sir. Through you, Mr. President, to the commission. In 2019 and 2020, obviously, we had some construction projects going on downtown, so we didn't have as many trash receptacles or dumpsters that needed to be emptied. So we do have a slight increase at a couple locations. We also went detail by detail through every park and every city property to reduce dumpsters, trash receptacles, totes, whatever we needed and could possibly reduce. Unfortunately, a lot of those containers that are now downtown are going to be year-round containers requiring additional collection by Republic. So they are making more trips this year in 2021 than they did in 2020. Plus, I did have a conversation with them today, and they said that their past pricing was dramatically reduced due to errors within their organization. So now they're trying to get more in line. We're still well below the market average by about 20% below the market average. So they're keeping us at a very good rate, but it did go up because of those changes and because they're looking at their accounting a little bit. So if you have any questions, I can certainly answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Briggs, will you call roll on the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray? Mr. Murray, you're on mute.
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance?
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Briggs, will you present item number 2, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Item number 2 is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to approve the third and final change order for work performed by Donley's Independence Incorporated of Cleveland, Ohio, for the Jackson Street Pier Rehabilitation Project, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Twine.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under the suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Briggs, will you call roll on the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Briggs, you present item number 3, please.
Item number 3 is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to purchase 3 2021 Ford Utility Police SUVs through the State of Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program from Larkin Greenwood Ford of Connorsville, Indiana, for the police department, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Harris.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
Meinzer. For Mr. Whoops or Mr. Oliver, I know I saw the supporting documents. This is a great price, I think, for an SUV. I can't believe it, but I'm just curious about a couple things. One, and I know they're hard miles, but what kind of mileage is on the vehicles that we're trading in? And two, why are we going to SUVs? Does it have to do with the cost, weather? And three, forgot three. Now I started talking. No, 3 was, how are we going to pay for them? I didn't see any documentation of what account these come out of.
Through the commission president to Commissioner Meinzer, I would defer on this to either Chief Oliver or John Orzak, the assistant city manager, who I know have been working closely on this issue.
Well, through the commission president to the other commissioners, I can speak on a couple of those questions. The mileage, I'll defer to our fleet manager, but the 3 I was told were over almost 100,000 plus. The price is great because it's state term. You're familiar with that through public safety there, sir. That's a very good price. The SUVs, I'll just speak on just being in the vehicles. They're bigger, they're better, the line of sight is better, the equipment fits better, it's easier on the officers, and they're also a lot safer. The weather we deal with 6-7 months out of the year, these vehicles, the all-wheel drive option is almost priceless. So that's why we're trying to take the entire fleet over the SUVs.
Okay, thank you. I got to give credit to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I speak again?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Meinzer.
Yeah, fleet maintenance, I mean, I know these are, like I say, these are hard miles, and get 100,000 miles on that type of vehicle. That's great.
Thank you.
Commissioner President, if I could speak.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner Meinzer, the mileage that I looked up, we're at 160,000 plus on one of the vehicles and 150,000 plus on the other 2. So it's about a 100-day turnaround to get delivery. And then when the fleet, it'll take several months for them to get those in service. We're averaging anywhere from 12 to 15,000 miles a year. So by the time these get in service, they're going to be 170, 160 plus on all 3 of them. So to your point, the fleet maintenance does a phenomenal job. And we weren't able to order vehicles in 2020 due to the pandemic. So we need to make sure that we get those on the road as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Commissioner Meinzer, in case you were wondering, that discounted price on the SUVs is not made available to elected officials.
Yeah, I figured that out. I just bought a truck.
Yeah.
Additional discussion, Commissioners. Ms. Briggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Certainly. Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Briggs, will you present our last item, item number 4?
Yes, Mr. President. Item number 4 is an ordinance approving an employer adoption agreement with the Ohio Public Employees Deferred Compensation Board to participate in the Roth 457 option plan and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Reader, can you share with us exactly what we're doing here? Are we making another financial instrument available?
Absolutely. So this is the Ohio Deferred Compensation Program where the city has already been participating in it. And the employees right now only have the option of putting away funds pre-tax. This newest plan, the Roth 457 plan, allows the employees to put away funds post-tax. So that's at the employee's option on what they prefer.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Reader. Additional comments or questions, Commissioners? Ms. Briggs, will you call a roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance?
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. That concludes our regular agenda, and we'll turn to our city manager for his report. Mr. Webster, you're up.
Thank you, Commission President, Commissioners, audience, and staff. I will start with the donations. First, a donation of $500 was received from David Stedman for the Red Popcorn Wagon Fund. The donation was given in the name of Lynn Noda Grathwall Stedman and will be used to replace the wagon's kettle for the upcoming season. I'd ask for a motion to accept that donation.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Without objection, that motion be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Our thanks to Mr. Stedman.
A second donation of $50 was received from City Commissioner Naomi Twine for the Sandusky Recreation Department. I'd ask for a motion to accept that generous donation.
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Our thanks to Commissioner Twine.
Moving on to finance, the collection for transient rental lodging will now be collected and reported online beginning February 1st of this year through the Erie County Auditor's website. You can get that at https://lata.localgov.org. The website will collect both the city and county's lodging tax, and a single transaction is being transferred for the convenience of those paying that tax. Additionally, as of February 1st, 2021, the Customer Accounting Office will discontinue the use of a post office box to receive mail. Please mail all utility bills and correspondence with the city to 240 Columbus Avenue, Sandusky, Ohio 44870. And water and sewer rates have increased for 2021 by 3%. This measure was approved in 2015, and additional information can be found in codified ordinances 939.13 and 933.25. Finally, for finance, effective January 2021, all billing statements will be sent only to the property owner. Tenants are still welcome to pay the bill. Bills can be paid through the city's free automatic bill pay service. Payments are also accepted online for a fee in person in the City Hall lobby or by mailing the payment to the City of Sandusky at 240 Columbus Avenue in Sandusky, Ohio 44870. Payments can also be dropped into the drop box located curbside at the corner of Columbus Avenue and East Washington Row, adjacent to Sandusky City Hall. For Public Works, the spring citywide cleanup event, also known as Dump Day, has been set for Saturday, April 24th. Further details will be shared as that date approaches, and any questions can be directed to 419-627-5829. Also, an update regarding accident damages to traffic signals at West Perkins and Caldwell. The equipment needed for the repairs arrived much sooner than expected, and work crews were on site with plans to install the new cabinet tomorrow. Once installation is complete, cameras and sensors will need to be inspected and programmed prior to the intersection being fully operational. Moving on to the planning department, a series of public meetings are scheduled. The Arts and Cultural Commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 16th, 5:15. The Landmark Commission meeting is scheduled for February 27th, also on a Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. The Board of Zoning Appeals is scheduled for Thursday, February 18th at 4:30 p.m. And the next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 27th at 5 p.m. There will be a presentation of the Downtown Sandusky Master Plan at 7 p.m. during this meeting. And all of those will be available online, but not for in-person. And finally, the Landmark Commission annual report was submitted to the city manager and city commission as an attachment to the manager's report as required by the Landmark Preservation Ordinance. For Sandusky Transit, beginning January 31st, the yellow and blue line will temporarily reduce their operating hours from 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. until the spring due to low ridership. For recreation, the City of Sandusky Recreation Department is excited to announce the return of some familiar programs and to debut some new programs in 2021. The award-winning Midtown Supper Club will return for its third season. Gymnastics and Make It So easy programs are also returning to the Sandusky Rec lineup. Snow sailing, an introductory American Sign Language class, basic Spanish are two new programs that will be taking place this year. Get Growing, indoor plants, and soil painting are two new programs to be offered at the Sandusky Greenhouse that extend the partnership with Sandusky Rec and the Erie Conservation District. And registration for all of these programs is available at www.cityofsandusky.com/recreation. For more information or questions regarding Sandusky Recreation, please call the Sandusky Rec Department at 419-627-5886 or 419-627-5888, or contact Jason Whirling at jwhirling@ci.sandusky.oh.us or Tondra Frisbee at tfrisbee@ci.sandusky.oh.us. That concludes my remarks for this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions or comments for the city manager?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
just a quick comment on the rec department. They put together a lot of really good programs, but some of them, I know they're only taking 8 per 8 in some of the classes. And at our last meeting, it occurred to me with the COVID going on, if anybody could help out, maybe sponsor one kid or two, it'd be like $25 for that 6 or 8 week class. Because a lot of them, $25, if they go to their parents, might as well be $1,000. It's just never going to happen. I don't want to lose a lot of these kids, especially right now with this burden of the COVID going on. So if any of the commissioners or anybody at home that might happen to watch this, if you'd like to donate, contact Jason Whirling at the Rec Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Waddington. Excellent idea, excellent thought. Additional comments or questions for the city manager? If there are none, the next item on our agenda are items of old business. Any items of old business, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Meiser.
I'm not sure if this is old business, but I know we've discussed this in the past, and it's for Mr. Webster, Chief Green, and the grant for the fire truck rang a bell with me. Is there any movement on the SAFER grant for manpower? We anticipated it coming maybe in the fall or winter. I just wonder if either one of them know that what the status of that is.
I could speak to that to the commission, to Commissioner Meinzer. We haven't had any word on the staffing as far as replacement or adding additional firefighters to the grant yet. The only thing that came up right now was for vehicle replacements.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Poole.
just to follow up on that, in terms of the answer that you just gave, you indicating that the grants have not opened up. Is that what you're suggesting? We're waiting to find out if they're going to be available.
To the commission, it's one of the grants that opened that we applied for was for equipment in vehicles. That opened up to FEMA, and for the other grant for personnel, and replacement of personnel, that hasn't opened up yet.
Okay, thank you.
Additional items of old business, Commissioners? Any items of new business, Commissioners? Items of new business? Any items of new business? Commissioner Murray, would you have an item of new business?
I do. Yes, I would make a motion to move into executive session to discuss a pending legal matter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Spriggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
That executive session is set, thanks to Mr. Murray. Ms. Spriggs, are there any communications from residents regarding city business to be read?
Yes, Mr. President, we received one communication for tonight's meeting. It comes from Tim Schwanger of 362 Sheffield Way in Sandusky. He says, "Greetings, commissioners and staff. My concern for this evening's meeting pertains to the amount of time city staff takes to fill public information requests in accordance with the Ohio Sunshine and Open Records Law. On November 4th, 2020, I submitted a public information request for documents regarding plans Maroos Brothers submitted for future use of the Damon's Restaurant and other areas of Battery Park. I have resubmitted that request a total of 3 times, and each time the answer has come back, we are putting the information together. It's been nearly 60 days since the first request. There are a number of other documents regarding other city issues I've been waiting for a response for up to 3 weeks as well. Transparency and openness in a timely manner is vital and necessary."
Thank you, Ms. Spriggs. That is a question that that we will send to the law director for a formal response to. But I can tell you without blaming everything as we typically do on COVID, we have changed hats in the law department recently. And that's giving no one a free pass on this issue. But things have slowed down dramatically on gathering information and providing information. But we too value openness and transparency. And I will leave it at that and allow our law director to respond directly to Mr. Schwanger's comments. Thank you. Any other items of new business, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Poole.
I don't have any new business, but Mr. Heil, when you respond to that, would you send a copy of that to me? When you respond to Mr. Schwanger's business. And while I have you there, what is the fine or penalty for failure to comply with the rules regarding providing information to people in a timely fashion?
Through you, Commissioner Brady, to Commissioner Poole, there are statutory requirements for responding in a timely fashion. You just have to respond within a reasonable amount of time. And so the city has not violated anything along those lines. And then obviously if a party doesn't get public records within a reasonable amount of time, they can bring a lawsuit along those lines. But obviously we're going to avoid anything along those lines and fully comply with our requirements under the Ohio Revised Code.
I wasn't suggesting that we were in violation. I said, is the penalty if we're found in violation?
Sure. Through you, Commissioner Brady, to Commissioner Poole, you can be assessed fines or court costs.
Thank you.
With nothing further, Commissioners, we will recess this meeting and we will move to our executive session. Stuart, will you mute this transmission? And I think each commissioner has his instructions on either phoning in or retiring to the second floor conference room.
We have to vote on that to make it work? Okay.
Sure like to know about it 2 weeks ago.
I think we're all back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in formal session of the January 25th, 2021 City Commission meeting. Is there a motion? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Murray.
Mr. Chairman, okay. I move to adopt a resolution authorizing our law director to resolve a pending employment dispute and to expend funds in an amount not to exceed $17,000, and for this legislation to take immediate effect in full accordance with the section 14 of our city's charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion.
Point of order, Commissioner Brady.
Go ahead.
I believe the amount is 17,500.
I shall amend my motion. I printed out the what I was supposed to say, and it ended at 17, and I couldn't remember whether it was 75. Sorry.
Get some new glasses.
We have a second. Can we have another second to that amended motion?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second to the amended motion. Discussion. Ms. Briggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
That motion is approved. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, did we vote on the motion and the legislation? Didn't we need to have 2 votes?
That's what I thought. I think so.
Is that correct? Is that a resolution, the law director?
Yes, it's a resolution. You should vote on the resolution to enact it in accordance.
Ms. Briggs, will you call roll on the resolution, please?
Yes. Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
That resolution is passed. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, ladies and gentlemen.
So moved.
Second.